Irwin, can you tell me, what are your thoughts on Gordon Brown's first leader speech?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I thought that he took what for him is a really personal experience, which he deeply feels informs his politics. I mean, all that talk about his father, that's really deeply felt, and tried to weave it into the theme of what he's about in politics. I think the speech got a little too diffuse to rest all on that, but he certainly tried to do that. I thought it was a bit long, in the sort of Fidel Castro range, and I thought he was more relaxed. Obviously, he's gotten where he wants to get, and that does make you more relaxed. But I'm trying now, since it's just a few minutes after the speech, to tote up in my mind all of the things he's going to do. In America, we have a bill that the president likes called No Child Left Behind. This was kind of No Voter Left Behind. And we're going to have more maternity. We're going to have... I'm trying to figure out, and I still haven't, whether there's a disconnect between what he says and then the way he plans to get there. And I think, take the NHS, where he, I think, really wants to have a more personal service, more geared to the consumer. And then how's he going to get there? Well, he sets more targets. Well, the way to get there is to give the patients more power. It's not to set more targets for the doctor.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks?
Well, I don't know. First of all, I think Gordon's very intelligent. He's not such an old dog yet. And I've always had this great hope that experience informs, and he did at one point say experience informs what we do. The question is, does it in his case? And we don't know that yet. But it's perfectly clear that the things he wants to have happen, a more personalized NHS, students...
Hello, thank you.
Students who, with education tailored more to them, at the same time as he's issuing directives to people as to how to do that. There's only one way to do that, and that's to empower the user of the service.
Yeah.
And that's a step that he's not taken yet.
Because the big issue for Gordon Brown is that he's trying to strike a balance between being friendly to business and being seen as being very much a modern Prime Minister in that context, but also trying to keep the party on side. Do you think?
Well, he did not have anything in there friendly to business today that I could see. I mean, he's loading. This is there's a political trick that in America got quite famous when Ronald Reagan ran huge deficits. And I remember saying to Ted Kennedy, ha, 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 you can't have any more new programs because we've got these huge deficits. He said, oh, yes, we can. We'll load the costs on business. So when he talks about more maternity leave, when he talks about environmental restrictions, when he talks about higher minimum wages, he's talking about loading quite a lot of costs on business. I did not hear a business-friendly sentence in the speech. Now, I know Gordon feels very strongly that he has to encourage entrepreneurship and that London must remain a vigorous financial center, all of that. But now maybe because he thinks his audience was just the people sitting there, which it isn't. But I didn't hear a business-friendly sentence in the speech.
There's a lot of speculation over whether Brown's going to go for an early election. Do you get a sense that, in terms of the economy, now is a good time to go?
Well, it's certainly not going to get better. I don't think it's going to get as much worse as people think it's going to get, but it's certainly not going to improve in the next several months. And I think that one of the things is that when you go from a 3.5% growth rate to, let's say, a 1.5% growth rate, it feels lousy, even though you're not in a recession. So I think that if it's just the economics that he thinks will determine the outcome of the election, and if he's as smart as appraising an economy to think he is, then those two things would impel him toward an early election. But there are other considerations, of course. I think he really believes, and this is kind of refreshing, that performance matters, and that if he can demonstrate performance, that will help him a great deal in an election. And now it's nice to have a politician who thinks that performance matters more than a lot of other things like presentation. Yeah. So I think he's going to balance those. I have no idea where he's going to come out.
And it's Gordon Brown's trying to construct this big tent, and there are some unusual allies that he's been able to draw in. Patrick Mercer, Paul Dacre. You've normally been identified as on the Republican side of the economic argument in America.
Well, say conservative. I'm not a Republican. Say conservative. Sorry.
Okay. But you've also expressed admiration for Gordon Brown.
Yeah, because I know this is odd. People say that this is a demonstration of my schizophrenia, which it may well be. I have great admiration for his intellect. When we have arguments, they are arguments of substance. And I have sneaking admiration for the notion of the difference in British and American society is that you are more class-ridden than we are. So I'm rather more sympathetic to less conservative politicians who want to eliminate class distinctions that have held people back. In America, that's not such an issue. So I find that very sympathetic. But in the end, I've disagreed with him. I think taxes are too high. I think he's got this creeping expansion of the welfare state, which is a mistake. But he's at least a thoughtful politician. There are no perfect choices in politics. I voted for George Bush in part because I believed in what he said, in part because he was running against the absolutely appalling candidate of Senator Kerry. So here you've got a choice between, they say in politics you can't beat something with nothing, and right now I think you have a choice between something and nothing.
So that's, you rate Cameron as a nothing?
So far. I think he may have learned a lesson of the limits of public relations skills in the past couple of months. If he did, then there's a chance that he will rebound. But if he still believes that the main thing is a presentational skill and what you present doesn't matter, then I think he's got a problem.
And so I'll take it from that you don't really rate very highly some of the policy announcements that the Tories have made in the last 6 weeks or so.
You know, you can't outsource policy. So if you have 18 groups telling you a whole bunch of things, and some of them you go to the meeting because you might like something in it, and some of them you stay away and you send poor Mr. Osborne instead to stand there and repudiate half of it. Those are not policy pronouncements. Those are, I don't know what they are, but they're not policy pronouncements.